This is your AirPods case. And this happens billions of times every single day. Because these are not just the most successful headphones ever built, they're also the most successful fidget toy ever built. But the engineers building the lid had a problem. First of all, they needed it to stay shut, so your headphones don't fly out. So what do? Well, let's just add a magnet here so it stays closed. And done, right? Well, now it stays closed, but when you open it, it opens like this. So it's not only blocking your headphones from getting out, but it also doesn't feel as good. It doesn't feel like a premium Apple product. They needed to build a system where any position of the lid will cause it to snap either fully open or fully closed, depending on the angle and where the cutoff angle makes it not too easy to open or close. See, hidden under the plastic here, there are actually 4 magnets. The 2 in the front are attracting each other, but the 2 on the back are repelling each other. And to make something that feels good, they had to calculate the relationship between the force of the attracting and repulsing magnets and the angle of the lid, and calculate the surface of the 2 magnets to make sure the force is exactly the same and to balance out where the 2 lines cross, because that's the cutoff point where the lid stays either fully open or it snaps closed. On all of this to make a simple lid. And this is no Apple secret. You can find this very chart on page 33 of the patent that Apple filed, where they also show the insane engineering behind something as simple as a lid on a pair of headphones. See, we all have that feeling using a tech product where you cannot really understand why, but it just feels good. It feels solid. It feels like something you actually want to grab and use. Well, this feeling is not random. Behind it, there's an insane amount of design and ridiculous engineering that most people never get to see. See, there are 4 building blocks that make physical tech products work. And the first one, you're probably looking at it right now. Take a look at these 2 corners. Now, which one is the corner of a premium product and which one of a cheap one? Now, this might sound like a stupid question at first. I mean, it's just a corner. But I know that most of you would probably say this one. And there's a reason why. See, basically all of the products we use every day have some sort of rounding on the corners. Even things that look sharp, like this one here on my Pixel 9, they're never a straight edge because the product will just be painful and uncomfortable to hold. So the corner here is chamfered, or in the beautiful language of industrial design and surface continuity is called G0. Basically, the edge gets cut off like this. But when you want to make the edge larger, this just doesn't work. So what do? Well, we just add a circle right here and there you go. All the rounded corners on Earth are like this, rounded corners, right? Well, no. See, this is a G1 curve. If you follow here, there's basically no curvature, and then all of a sudden the curvature starts and it's even all the way in the circle and then immediately goes back to 0 when we are on the other side. But if we go back to our example from before, this is the curve from a MacBook Pro. And what makes it feel so premium and fancy is that they're using a G2 curve that's built to have its curvature increase and decrease along the corner. And you can go even further with a G3 one, where even the graph of the curvature itself has no corners. This is what you would find in the freeform design of cars and some of those blobby cool tech from the early 2000s. But here's the thing, in any CAD drawing software, you can literally choose which curvature you want to fill it with. It's just math. Since these are really subtle differences that affect reflections, they are hard to convey on a screen. So CAD tools have things like zebra mode to spot non-continuous surfaces and to see how the light interacts with your corners. So designing these corners is not the hard part, so why isn't every product doing this? Well, of course, it's about money. This is easy and cheap to manufacture. No executive of a cheap brand would increase production costs for something as silly as a fraction of a millimeter of rounding in a corner. But that's what makes it end up looking cheap. But there's a reason why so many of these great hardware design examples are about Apple. Because if there's someone as crazy and obsessed about design and details that would actually spend millions to make sure all products not only have G2 corners, but they all match perfectly, well, that's Steve Jobs or Johnny Ive or the entire Apple gang, basically. But it's not just Apple. This is the Teenage Engineering TP7. And look at this. G2 curves for the big corners and chamfered edges here to create this line of light and makes it almost like an accent on the keys. And when you translate this to the software world, this becomes the squircle, the in-between shape between a circle and a square that unsurprisingly is the shape of all iOS icons. In Figma, for example, when you round the corner, you can choose how much corners moving you want, and I'm not getting into the math of this because it's a whole separate video. Oh, and if you really want to be a nerd, there's even a Chrome extension that makes every single rounded corner on your browser a squircle. But curves are just the starting point because there's something else that you use every day. Something you use to open this very video with. buttons. Take a look at this. This is the most basic button you can build. A piece of metal touching another piece of metal, and when they touch, the circuit closes and the button does something. I mean, this works, but it also feels like nothing. See, in this chart we have how much we press and how much the button resists back on our finger. And here, it's flat. If you've pressed on buttons that feel mushy, their chart would probably look like this. There's no force pushing back on your finger, so to fix it, we're gonna add something that's basically in every single button you press. A metal dome. A tiny dish of steel that bends, resisting your touch up until a specific point where it collapses all at once. And now watch what the collapse does to our chart. The line climbs like before, but the moment the dome buckles, the force suddenly drops. Your finger was pushing against something that stopped pushing back. See, most people think what makes button feel good is the click, the actual sound. But in reality, what sells it is the feeling, is this cliff right here. And we've become so good at this that basically every single button works with some version of this curve. Your phone's power button, your TV remote, your car keys, there's a little dome like this inside all of them right now. But this is where things get interesting. Because now that the click is a shape on a chart, we can measure how much the force falls divided by the peak. And this number is called tactile ratio. It's the secret that makes a button feel good. You have it at 0 and you get the mushy, no feedback button. Have it at 100% and the dome never pushes back up. The button collapses, just stays down. Every button you've touched lives somewhere between these two. And manufacturers literally sell positions on this line. But the catch is that the higher the number, the better the button feels, but the more the steel bends with every push. A dome rated for 180 grams of click force is built to last 5 million presses. A way better one at 300 grams, is rated for only 10,000. So choosing your button is really a choice between feeling, cost, and how much they last. And some of you might remember one of the most famous examples of what happens when you get this wrong. In 2015, Apple wanted to make their Pro laptops the thinnest ever. And so this cliff right here in the keyboard is a problem because these are precious millimeters that you need to allocate to the keyboard. So Apple redesigned the mechanism under every single key to cut the travel roughly in half. They called it the butterfly keyboard and they rolled it out across every laptop they made. And this resulted in the typing feeling really weird, where the key doesn't feel as tactile because it's just not traveling as much. And when you have so little gap between pressing and not pressing, any crumb or speck of dust under the key and that key is dead. Letters started repeating, appearing, and this is hardware, so you cannot fix it with a software update. They had to launch a repair program for basically every butterfly Mac and pay $50 million to settle this in a class action. And in 2019, they actually rolled back the butterfly keyboard and brought back their regular one. Now, building hardware is hard, but building software is actually getting easier. And that's where the sponsor of this video, Cursor, comes in. As many of you know, I'm the founder of Flask, my video feedback tool, and I'm using Cursor to build large parts of it. See, the great thing about Cursor is that it can connect natively with all the other services you use. Yesterday, for example, I was debugging an issue that a customer had when uploading videos to Flask, but my Cursor is connected via plugin to my database to check what's on there. And then it used the Vercel plugin to check the logs and see what failed in the upload. And it brought all of it together to fix the bug. I have Figma connected, which I use to design specific assets like icons or to do wireframe, and Cursor can just pick them up. But one of my favorite features is its cloud execution. Even with my computer fully shut down, I can be on my phone to solve an issue, and Cursor spins up an entire Linux virtual machine with a full graphical user interface to test my app, even record videos of it solving the issue. Another thing I do very often is I like to mess with Tailwind classes manually to really nail down a component, because I immediately see the result and I can iterate much faster than an AI. So the fact that Cursor is an actual IDE comes super handy. I can just open it up and start to directly interact with my code for these tweaks. You can get Cursor with a link in the description. But now back to the video, because the next piece is a weird one. See, we have buttons and curves, but the next building block is literally a building block. Materials. This is a PlayStation 5. I remember the first time I saw one in real life, before even touching it, it gave me the idea of a very cheap product. Although I couldn't really pinpoint why. Well, the reason is this centerpiece, a very large piece of plastic with a shining finish. See, pieces like this are made with injection molding, pouring hot plastic into a mold. Now, that's all great. It's a cheap system to create basically any shape, but it comes with a problem. The plastic dries at different speeds in different spots, and when a piece is big enough and with a glossy surface like this, you can see every one of those little imperfections. It's those ones right here. Now, when they designed the PS5 on a computer, this black glossy band was looking sharp and super cool. But getting it into the real world is another story. Take a look. Here I made the plastic mat and the product looks much more premium. But choosing materials is much more than this. Take the Game Boy Color and the original iMac. These are the symbol of the late 90s or early 2000s trend of transparent plastic tech, which was all about not hiding the components, but instead making the tech feel naked, accessible and open. Now, materials like aluminum are more premium. I turn them into metal, and even though it's a technically better material, it looks like it doesn't belong because those products are so associated with their material that it just looks weird. But let me ask you, why does aluminum and metal just feel better? Take a look at these. No difference? Well, this is my Game Boy Advance SP. It's a beast of a machine, but made of plastic. And this is my Fuji X100V, a $1,500 premium aluminum camera. The colors and the reflections look really similar, almost the same. Touching them both, they roughly have the same matte polished surface. So what makes the metal feel premium is, well, cold. Metal feels colder, not because it's actually colder in temperature, but because of a property called effusivity, or how much heat is the material drawing from your hand. And aluminum takes around 30 times more heat than plastic. But the fourth piece is where things start to get interesting, because it's not just about what you can touch in the real world. Let's start with something simple that might look obvious. The volume controls on my Pixel are animated as if they're coming out of the physical volume controls on the side. My fingerprint scanner is here under the screen, and even the animation to unlock the screen has been built to be as if it's coming out of my thumb. The most magical experiences come when your product is able to fuse together hardware and software. And this is something that companies don't do enough. For example, this is a mock-up that my creator friend Breccia, a designer, made of the Switch 2 before it came out. And he designed it so that when you attach the Switch to the dock, there's this animation that's on brand with the Mario pipe that moves this content from the Switch screen to the TV. A digital animation that's fully in line with how the product looks and the physical world interaction. This is the Teenage Engineering OP1, a synthesizer that's actually used by music producers to make some of the most famous songs ever. And the people that actually built the product made it so that hardware and software are one thing, one experience. Here you control the device mainly through these 4 color knobs. And the interface is not an afterthought, but it's built around these 4 knobs. Each effect and each synthesizer is making use of these knobs to control parameters in a way that in a regular music production DAW would look like this. But instead, they're made fun, playful, and tactile. The colors of the knobs are reflected on the screen, and it creates this really unique feeling that you are manipulating sounds with your hands. The TP7 recorder that we showed before has this huge central rotating disc that you can spin like a vinyl to seek back and forward into what you're listening. And it actually spins while you play. Now, this is really fun in itself, but this is a digital device. So to sell the illusion that you're actually manipulating something physical as if you're interacting with a vinyl, they are digitally morphing the sound and its pitch to create the same effect that touching a physical vinyl would. So you can, for example, do scratching on a digital device. Now, of course, you can do this if you control both the hardware and the software of what you're building, and that's why so many of these examples are from Apple, because they basically pioneered this. The dynamic island is one of the main examples of this, using the limitation of the hardware, the camera cutout, to create a software element that actually has function. But even if you're just building software, you can still craft it around the hardware it runs on. For example, this is the AI assistant Hey Click It that I was testing, and they built it to make it live basically on the notch of my MacBook here in the center. And other products like Amy are also doing the same thing, using the notch as the main element. But there's something else that's going on. This. See, notifications are probably the most powerful piece of the tech you use every day. And they hide an insane amount of design, engineering, and knowing how to use them means you can actually influence the behavior of millions of people. And this is already happening. And you can learn all about it in this video right here. I'm Enrico, and I'll see you in the next one.